It's now my pleasure to introduce John Augustine, CEO and President of Penn's Northeast. And when we were putting together today's panel, we wanted to balance the federal legislative issues, the national issues, but then also a regional perspective. John Augustine and I have worked together for many years, actually on the ground here, trying to locate businesses in the Northeast PA. And we think it's an important component of our discussions as, again, Pennsylvania as a whole and Northeast PA go to bat against other regions of the country to say, this is why you want to build here. This is why you want to invest here. And John, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the stage here and have share your thoughts about the successes of Penn's Northeast and all of the great stuff you're working on.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you all for putting this together. Keith, pleasure to be with you on the phone, and I've known the Congressman for a very long time, being from Northeastern PA, and it's nice to have somebody who's walked the walk and talked the talk, coming from a manufacturing background to where he is today. He knows the struggles of small businesses. Frankly, I'm also excited to be on this call with, seeing the guest list with former colleagues, coworkers, friends, including my former boss, Katie Klaber. I saw her on the list and was fortunate to be the outreach coordinator for the Marcellus Shale Coalition. Previously, it was with the Wilkes-Barre Chamber, so got to see really kind of all facets of small business. And, when you look at Northeastern Pennsylvania, we fueled the Industrial Revolution. When we started with coal and then moved that across to Pittsburgh and Allentown to do the steel and the iron, our history is better than any other state. And frankly, when we talk about manufacturing business in general, it's a competition. It's a global competition. And we need to make sure on the federal, local, state, regional levels that we're frankly putting our best foot forward, knowing other states are doing the same thing. So at Penn's Northeast, we oversee 8 counties. We're fortunate enough to have every county in the upper right coordinates of the state as a member of our organization. That includes local governments, county governments, but it also includes private businesses, construction companies, manufacturers, and we act as an umbrella organization to go out on a national and frankly global level to attract business here. The pandemic was certainly difficult for the United States as a whole. I think it was very difficult for Pennsylvania. Hopefully we learned some lessons. Our trends prior to that were different. So for example, we are very fortunate, as the Congressman mentioned, to be within 3/4 of the US population within that 1 day's drive that a trucker can do. And I found out that we're also within half the Canadian population. Canada's 2 things, it's left and it's right, and just moose in the middle. So, we can reach Canada, we can reach the majority of the US, and that's what makes Pennsylvania why we're the Keystone State. So whether you're on the western part or the eastern part, you kind of have to go through Pennsylvania. From kind of where we were trending was we obviously had an explosion in e-commerce and distribution. It started out with big boxes, 1 million square feet based on our location. As the Congressman mentioned, we started to see that change and move to some higher skills, more robotics, more technology, and frankly, better wages. So just in the greater Wilkes-Barre area, the average starting salary 2 years ago was $9 an hour. Well, it's $15.75 with benefits. That's with no government influence. I don't know anybody that's making minimum wage, I got to be honest with you, because some of these are low-skilled jobs and some of them are very high-skilled jobs. But $15.75 is not a bad place to start. We can always get better and we can always grow, and that's what competition does. We don't need government to step in to do that. What we've started to see, the only problem with e-commerce and warehousing is typically they don't use a ton of natural resources, right? It's conveyor belts, it's not heavy on the manufacturing side. And so I think that gives us that leg up. As I talked about competition, there's no other state with the exception of Texas, that can be as competitive as Pennsylvania. Why in God's name would you want to be in New York and pay the cost, whether it's on an office side, whether it's on a manufacturing side? And I really think there's a great opportunity to attract businesses. Bill, you and I, we're working on, it's not Shell, but it's going to hopefully be one of the next best things to Shell. It's an amazing project. But we have challenges. You know, the failure of House Bill 1100 was very disappointing. When we look to our neighbors to the west and the south that are putting incentives on the board for companies, incentives are a double-edged sword, and you can't do, frankly, one-offs. You have to put them on the table just so you can be a player in the game. Companies hire brokers that look for lots of things, and incentives are one of them. Typically, it has always been location, location, location. So we're in a good spot for that. And in the last 2 years, location took a backseat to labor. And it was, do you have the market? Well, we have great trade schools. We have 19 colleges and universities here in Northeastern Pennsylvania that graduate over 40,000 students every year. Outside of places like Philly or Pittsburgh, there's nowhere else in the state that does that. We're an affordable place to operate. We have reliable energy, and that, frankly, is not just gas. We have our water companies, Pennsylvania American Water, investing in their infrastructure, PPL, who, you know, constantly goes above and beyond. And I would challenge anyone to find a state better than PA when it comes to those assets, which is why we need to get past those challenges. Because in theory, they should be easy to fix, right? And looking at putting those incentives out there. So while it was location, now it's labor, location second. The newest one that our site selector friends are talking about is, how did your community, how did your state fare during this pandemic, during this crisis? And I gotta be honest with you, we didn't do so good. Other states were worse, but a lot of states were better. There was a lot of disruption, who's open, who's closed, why, what's the reasoning, and small businesses are the lifeblood of America. And when Keith talks about, for example, PPE, it's what most of those people that manufacturers that made those PPE never even knew the word PPE themselves, but they were able to quickly convert, reintegrate, reinvent, and come up with those products without a long line of trying to do so. And that's what makes America great, that when we're faced with a challenge, we're able to quickly overcome that, and that's what we did. We know there's going to be future pandemics, whether it comes in the fall or whether, frankly, it comes next year with something else. If we don't reinvent quickly, if we don't onshore quickly, then we have nobody to blame but ourselves, because we have every tool and resource at our disposal to do it. And again, Pennsylvania has more than others. We got hardworking people, whether you're blue collar or white collar, whether you're a trade. We have all those assets that a company will look for. And what the companies are telling us is, what happens when round two comes or a new round? Am I still going to be open for business? Am I still going to be able to operate? Are you going to help me with those resources? And we want to say overwhelmingly, you know, yes. Our unemployment in Northeastern Pennsylvania has traditionally been higher than the state and national average. But prior to this, we were down with our lowest unemployment numbers ever. And I really think after this virus, we have the ability to be, you know, a lot stronger, and that comes with manufacturing. If you think that it's a good idea where 76% of medicine is made outside of your country, that's a bad idea. When the majority of your products that you need, tariffs or not, that's a bad idea. And I would rather, you know, frankly, pay a little bit more and have that product here and have my neighbors working than be relying on others. And even before this, we started to see some positive trends. We worked very well with the state through the Governor's Action Team, the Department of Community and Economic Development, and interestingly enough, the Office of International Business Development. And for those folks that don't know, there is approximately 14 reps throughout the world that are stationed in spots to try to bring business to Northeastern Pennsylvania. So where my office is in Pittston, right across the street, is a company that came from Europe. They employ 300 people. They just attracted one of their suppliers, bringing another 150. We've had food companies looking at our area. We're a hot spot for food. That's not something that you really want to outsource. Sometimes things tend to spoil. So, making that here. We've always been strong on plastics, metal fabrication. And I think the other opportunity with this virus has been the remote working, that, again, you're paying $200,000 for a small box in Manhattan. You could be having a beautiful home in Northeastern Pennsylvania for 2,000 square feet and be able to do that. So again, I think from our standpoint with our partners that the opportunity is right. I think, again, we have a lot of those tools and resources when a company starts to look at what are my costs if I'm here versus somewhere else, and we can start checking those boxes, having a strong voice on the federal side with our congressional and Senate leaders, with the president, who gets it, with good state representation, and making sure we take advantage of this situation, because these are once in a lifetime opportunities. This was a a lemon versus a lemonade type scenario. What we need to do is come out of this much stronger. We need to do it now. We have the opportunity to do so. So, I want to thank you folks and everybody out there that is doing their best on a daily basis to make this better, because, frankly, it's now or never. And so, we're willing to help, and we have partners all across the state. Obviously, we want business in our backyard first, but I also want it in Pennsylvania before I want it in another state. And so, we have great partnerships with the IRCs and the EDOs and the chambers, and now's the time. And so, I think we're poised and, ready to go. And the fact that we can have affordable, reliable, and responsible natural gas puts us way up on that list for manufacturing.
How can organizations like Penn's Northeast and the National Association of Manufacturers work with small and mid-sized companies to get into the supply chain of key industries, whether that be military or healthcare or the energy sector?
From our standpoint, we're very fortunate to have great partners, not just across the state, but locally. And so we work very well with our IRC, which is NEPERC, and also with NEPA Alliance and Ben Franklin and our manufacturing association. And so some of the things that we do is we host annually that delegation that I mentioned that are throughout the world. Working for the state DCD, we host them here in Northeastern Pennsylvania, and we tour them to local businesses. Like the Congressman mentioned, we make sure that we hit Yangling every year, and then we hit places like Pride and others. We also partner with them to have manufacturing days where they can pitch their products to those supply chains that you're talking about. And so a lot of times, when you're running a small business, that's a lot of work, right? You're trying to make your product, you're trying to manage your product, you're trying to market your product, and you really need those resources to be able to help with that, with those other things. And between our network with the chambers and those groups that I mentioned, that help is there. And so what I would encourage, and frankly, I believe that help is all across Pennsylvania. There's a great network for that. So anybody who's on this call, who is struggling from a supply chain standpoint, what Penn's Northeast has tried to do is become a one-stop shop for business, no matter what the business, whether you're small, large, manufacturer, distributor, and they're often, with any government, there's a lot of hoops to have to jump through. And so we try to make that easy and be that easy button. So call me, call our staff, and we'll get you the answers. And if we don't have them, we'll follow up and we'll point in that right direction, because one of the things that's always been frustrating in Pennsylvania is that we talk about more taxes, more taxes, more taxes, whether it's on the gas industry or anything else. That's not how you grow an economy. You grow an economy by growing businesses that pay taxes. So you don't tax an industry, you tax multiple businesses that all share together those things that we would like to enjoy, like no potholes, like safe bridges. And so I think it's really important, and that's, I think, was kind of frustrating with House Bill 1100, was this is something that passed overwhelmingly with Republicans and Democrats. Congressman, how often does that happen? Complete bipartisan support, trades, unions, and the associations that got behind this, it's a no-brainer. I can't create those tools to offer a company. Shell would not be here, in my opinion, without those incentives, or it would have been really difficult with those incentives. And when you have Ohio rolling out 25 red carpets, it's hard to compete with that. And so if everybody does their part, we will have an amazing tax base, and we will be able to help those small businesses. So to answer your question, though, if any are struggling with the supply chain, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to point them in the right direction.
Up in our district, Susquehanna County, just north of you, next week, the Susquehanna County Career and Technology Center is going to be opening a CDL school. CDL schools are very important, in my opinion, because even before the pandemic hit, we didn't have enough drivers to move the products we were moving. And today, we still don't have enough drivers to move the products that we're moving. So when manufacturing does come back, we're going to need a lot more drivers. But more so to the career and technical side of things, what's being done at, say, the federal level to invest in career and technology centers, whether they be a CDL school or just welding, advanced manufacturing. These are great schools, and we need to transition, especially our youth and young adults, into those types of careers.
Hey, I just want to mention, and Cabot knows this all too well with building the petroleum and natural gas school at Lackawanna. It's a lot of times not just going out to the kids, but it's going out to the parents so that they see the stigma's been removed, the cost benefit versus the expenses there. And I'll just kind of leave it with this. Those jobs that we're talking about, whether it's plumbing, heating, CDL, manufacturing, they can't be outsourced. You have a job for life in one of those very good paying jobs. So I would encourage, everybody, whether it's students, children, grandchildren, to at least look at all of those options about what this country is offering us to be better.